Hi everyone, welcome to another video tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to talk to you about how to set up an ELAN database. ELAN is a software package developed out of the Max Planck Institute in the Netherlands. It's fantastic for organizing and working with audio and visual materials, especially for linguistic analysis. I really encourage you to make use of this. However, it does have a small bit of a learning curve. And so I'm hoping that this video will help you get started, and then you can design your database in a way that will fit your needs. Okay, so once you install ELAN and open it for the first time, this gray screen will pop up. And what you need to do in order to get an ELAN database to work, you need to open the audio or video files that you want to work with, and then create the relationships between tiers and types. So let me just do that. So up here in the file section, you can go to new, or you can push Control-N, and you get this dialog box, and your task here is to navigate to where you have either your audio material or your video material stored. ELAN works equally well for both. So if you want to work with some video and time align it and translate it and transcribe it, ELAN works great for it. Same thing with audio. I'm just going to do something really short that I've done here called sample. It's on my desktop, and once I choose the media that I want to work with, I just push these double arrows and it goes over here, and that's how I know that's the audio that is going to load. We're not going to talk about anything else here. You can look into the help manual about how to create a template and what all these other things are. Again, it's very robust. It's a great program. So once we get ELAN open, we see this. We'll see the sound wave here. Right, and then this word default, and this is where you do all of your work in ELAN. However, what we need to do is over here we need to change the way the database is set up, the way that we work with the sound file itself. Okay, and we do that with tiers and types. Now, it's a really good idea to think about before you create this what you want your database to look like and how you want each part of your database to interact. I'm going to show you the one that I most often use. It's not the one I use always. So you have to understand that good database design comes before using ELAN. So think about it, write it down, draw a picture, show the relationships between words and meaning units and intonational phrases. How do you want to work with them? Do you want them to be able to click and hear the sounds, or just know that they're there? How do you want to be able to work with this information? And I'll show you some of that information today, but we'll create a basic database. Okay. So then we have these things called types. Types are characteristics of a certain part of the audio file or the video file. And then tiers are a transcribed line. So if you were listening to audio and you wanted to transcribe a sentence or a word or a morpheme or an intonational unit, or give the IPA transcription of it, that's what tier means. It's those tier is a translation line or a transcription line. Okay, and type is the characteristics of each of those lines that you want to deal with. So we're going to deal with types first. We're going to set up the characteristics that we need to deal with. What I want to do is create a database that allows me to show the language that I'm working on. Perhaps it's a different language, not English, right? I want to show the words. I want to have morphemes, and then I want to do glosses for each of those elements, both morphemes and the whole chunks, the whole sentences. So let me go back so I can talk about it. So up here in type, you go to change linguistic type, and you'll see that ELAN already has one in here called default IT. This is its default type. We need to change this, and what you need to do is name it something broad. So I usually call this my source type because this is what the characteristic of this that I'm trying to create is the original language, so the source of information. So other people call it text. There's a number of different names. You should not call it a particular person or a particular language. We use those titles for the tiers, not for the types. So in the types, we just want to characterize the tier. So this will be something that we use for a tier. So the characteristic of this tier of this type will be something like very broad, just the source of the information. Okay. Everything else stays just the way it is. You'll notice that time alignable is checked, and everything is just fine just the way that is. If you have a controlled vocabulary, this is where you can select it and put it in. Okay. So I'll just put change, and you'll notice that up here I now have a type called source, and then everything that I chose, and it's great. Now before I close this, I need to add a bunch of other types. Okay. One of the other types I need to do is called, maybe I'll call it word. Okay. So this one, I'm imagining it to be all the word chunks. So the source I'll use for like the big chunks, the sentences. Then I'll break it down into words. I want words and the source file to be, every time I click on one of these things, I want it to be able to play sound. And so I have to make sure I do that. So we have to go with word. We need it to be, we have to check included in. Okay, under the stereotype. What this means is it will be included in the source type. It'll be part of the source type, a smaller unit, and that it will give us variation about how long the transcription can be. And this is really great. So we want time alignable still on it. So we'll do add, and we have another type. Okay. I also need one for morphemes, and I'll just call this one a group. Maybe I'll call it a meaning group. Okay. And I don't, in my database, I don't necessarily want this to have access to the audio. I just want it to be there for me to do analysis with. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click symbolic subdivision. Okay. Symbolic subdivision means it allows me to separate certain parts of the audio file into equal amounts of chunks, and it'll show me what it is. So I choose symbolic subdivision, and you notice time alignable is now unchecked, and that's right. And so we'll just press add, and we have one more that we want to do, and we'll call this one, let's see, what should we call it? We should call it probably gloss or something. Okay. So this is where all the translations come from. Okay, and this one we will want to make it a symbolic association. Okay, right down here for the stereotype, and that's the way to do that. And then you push add. Notice time alignable is not on it either. That means it doesn't have access to the audio file. It'll just be part of the chunk. So we'll do add. So we have 4 types, and now that's all we need for my database. So I'll just push close, and then we got to go and change our tiers. The tiers will be listed here on the left-hand side. Right now we have one tier called default, and we need to specify our tier names and their values, their relationships between each other. So I go to tier, change tier attributes, and the first one I want to do is the language I'm working on. I'm going to pretend my audio file is of an English sentence, but I'm going to pretend it's some other language. I'm going to pretend that perhaps maybe it's Wichi, one of the languages that I work on in Argentina. Okay, so I'm going to name this Wichi, and I want it to be the biggest, the broadest annotation transcription possible. I want this to be the sentence level transcription. So I'm going to put it in source. The linguistic type down here is source, and there is no parent tier. So all of these, both none and source, are correct. The part where it says default language, you'll never use this. This is just for if you're using a non-Roman alphabet. So IPA, it won't change it if you change to a different language. So don't mess with the default language at this point. Okay, so I'll just push change, and you'll notice that over here it changed here. I have Wichi now listed as my tier, and it changed it up here. And I don't know why the ELAN automatically minimizes like that, but I'll just maximize it and go back into what we were looking at. Okay, so then I need some other tiers. Okay, I need one for the words, and so I'm going to call this words. Okay, so I have a sentence and I want to break it down into its separate words. Okay, the parent tier is going to be Weiqi, right? So I already have the Weiqi tier, and I want words to be dependent, to be a part of the Weiqi and a transcription that I already done. Okay, and the computer suggests that maybe you want this to be the linguistic type word that we created, and that's exactly what we want it to be. Okay, so we'll just push add, and we're there. We need to add a few other types. We need to add a morpheme tier, because this is the meaning unit, and this one will make the parent be the words, okay? Because we want to break the words up into their separate morphemes, and we're going to make the tier, the linguistic type, a meaning group. And again, on default language, we'll push none, and we'll push add. And then we need to have a gloss for the morpheme. So we'll call this one just gloss, or maybe we can call it English gloss. Okay. And our parent tier is going to be morphemes, because we're going to gloss each morpheme. Okay. And we don't want it to be a meaning group. We want it to be a gloss. We push add. We have one more, and then we need one final one. We want a gloss for the whole entire sentence. Okay, so we're going to put free translation here. Okay, and the parent tier is going to be Weiqi, but we want to make sure the linguistic type is gloss. Okay, and then we push add. That's all. We have 5 tiers and 4 types, and that's all we need to do. So we can push close, and over here you can see all of the elements in our database. If you want to check this, you can go to View, Tier Dependencies, and you can see how the database is organized. And this is the correct way of having it organized, where Weiqi is the source, and then it has 2 immediate dependents, words and free translation. And words has 2 immediate dependent, has 1 immediate dependent, morpheme, and morpheme has an immediate dependent, English gloss. Okay. Now, at this point, you can go ahead and put your annotations in. Each one of these tiers will behave a little bit differently, and so it's a good idea to get a feel for how they behave and if that's the way it works for you. This is the way I set up my database as I work through. I might also have another one down here called Notes that I just keep notes on, and or you can have as many tiers as you want, but that's the basics for setting up an ELAN database. Thanks.